So what I'm doing here is I've taken the lunar blue, which is a granulating color, and I'm mixing it with cerulean, which is another granulating color. These are both Daniel Smith, and I'm just kind of intuitively applying them to the paper and just playing with the shapes. This is dry paper. It's just one of my sketch pads on block. I really like what it's doing here, so I'm going to go ahead, and it is tilted, so everything's running down. So I'm probably going to go ahead and shift this really quick so that we can change the direction that it's running. Just to be able to play with it a bit more. So let's just shift it. That. And this is just going to make the colors run more towards the sky, because I'm going to go ahead and do some sky. I'm just using one brush for this. And I'm going to do a rough wash, so it's going to be a little bit adding some water. You can do this wet on wet if you want, but I'm just kind of playing with this square brush right now, and I just want to leave a lot of white space because it is like a snowy scene, and also I can get these harder edges with the granulating color if I don't go wet on wet, and I can get a much rougher, interesting mottled look with the paint. And as I go over it, I'm not really worried about smudging it because I'm going to do another layer. I just kind of want to create some atmosphere and some movement using this really great brush. This is by Escoda, and it's a Prado 3/4 inch. This is just fun sketchbook stuff. So as I drag over, I'm picking up a little bit of the lunar, which like the grayer part of the lunar, and I'm just kind of letting it bleed in. Then I'm going to take a little water. I'm just going to play with these white areas just by dragging the color across. A little bit of a dry brush effect just for fun, just to see what it looks like. Just gives it a little more texture. Because remember, we can always go back. And this is like a little bead of blue, which is cool. I kind of want to encourage it. And I'm just going to drag that across there. Create kind of a little distant horizon line. Encourage some background just by adding a little bit of shadowing with very, very light pieces of watercolors, little bits that I'm picking up from the beads. Add a little bit of water if you get a little dry, and still I'm leaving quite a bit of white space, but instead of just big pieces of stark white, I'm just kind of filling in with a little bit of shadowing and color. And any little beads that I see that I feel like I can use that as paint to kind of create like distant trees, get a little more color on my brush and start in an area where I want it to be darker, and then I can kind of bring it out. Just encourage that beautiful coloring. This is the Cerulean by Daniel Smith, and I'm just kind of using my brush to dot it in, add some water to lighten it up. And a square, a flat brush really does keep it really nice and rough, And by doing this, I can create almost, rough trees, but I can create canopies across just using the cerulean, or I could take a green, but I'm going to just do this one in blue just to highlight the beautiful textures of the sediment of the watercolor. I'm adding a little lunar to the base of the tree as it bleeds up, so that in hopes it will grab me a little bit of structure for my trees. I'm going to put a little more into the trunks here to kind of ground them. Remember, we're doing this like upside down right now because I would like to end up with bleeds that kind of look like texture for the trees. I'm going to flip it in just a second. So I'm taking a little more lunar, and I'm going a little darker here. I'll go a little darker here. Just smudging, creating little tree trunks. And even if you find that it's too dark, remember you can add water, and with granulating color, it's just going to bring out those beautiful granulations and those different colors within the granulation even more. This is a custom color combination that I did earlier, which was really cool. Sorry, I have to turn down the TV. Now I'm adding a little more cerulean to it. Let's wet my brush so I can rinse off a little bit of the lunar and go with the cerulean here, getting a little darker on this area. And again, I'm just letting it bleed up. And if it gets away from you, you can just use a cloth and control it a little bit. I love the roughness that this creates. And I have this thing where I'm trying not to be symmetrical with my trees, but I just almost can't help it. So I find that when I do them upside down, I get a nicer kind of more random look to my trees. So if you are like me and you have a little bit of a trouble getting your trees to look more random, and they're looking more really even, almost like cartoon trees, then doing them upside down, it really does change that whole thing. And you're going to see that, because I literally, my eye can't balance the tree out. It tries, but it really isn't going to be able to really balance the tree out. Now, some of these washes are going to look right now, but I mean, you can change that. You can always go back after it dries and rough them up a little bit. There's a lot of things you can do with these. Earlier in this course that I have for you, I was showing you how to mix your own colors, and I also did quite a few samples for you on how to use granulated color. I'm just adding a little more texture here by pushing the brush down with the water, just to encourage sediment to be left there and to just let it do what it wants. Now, because this is upside down, this is going to create a bead line, which is really, really nice, where we won't get the bead line on the underside. We'll get the bead line more on the overside, and that's kind of interesting. Now, we don't want to make it too busy, of course, so I'm going to flip it over in just a second here, and we're going to see what we have. I'm also going to switch the angle of my brush a little bit, just to make sure that I'm not just doing horizontal or just vertical lines, but I think I've got something I'm going to rough out my trees, because if I start to fiddle with my trees when they're right side up, this is where I always end up with asymmetrical, or too symmetrical trees, I should say, instead of just kind of nice random rough trees. Now, if ever you have a sharp line, you can take a little water and you can just kind of blend it out, and I find that that even makes the trees even look better. So don't be afraid to just get a little bit rough and crazy with it. I'll put a cerulean little bush tree here, and we'll go just a little bit in the background. Now, with watercolor, I find that at the same time, if you have too much space, too many little white spaces, sometimes your painting doesn't look like it's coming together. So what I'm doing here is I'm just going across the horizon line and kind of blending in a little bit, roughly, some of all the different effects that I created, because I got a lot of effects here, a lot more with granulating than you typically would see. We're going to add a little bit of the lunar here just to get a little depth in this tree, because it is kind of still in the foreground, but I want it to be still very shadowy because it's in the back. of this one. I'm gonna add a little lunar to do the tree trunks, and then we're gonna flip this over, and I'm not gonna fiddle with it. I'm just gonna leave it to my sketchbook as a nice, fun, playful piece. Okay, here we go. Let's see what it looks like. Ooh, actually, that is not bad. So if I were going to fiddle, I kind of really love the texture, actually. I would probably add more of that to here. Since we went on this side, it seems like the trees are getting this nice little like corner of my brush texture. Let's go ahead and just follow that. Just be like, okay, we got it. So let's go ahead and do it. Just a little more. So we really go somewhere with it. And I'm going to keep it all on the right side of the trees, just to act like this is a beautiful, deep highlight, like kind of shadow that the trees are getting. And I have to, again, I should flip this over because I'm going to get really crazy with it. Use your tissue to get rid of anything that doesn't turn out right. And I am ready to stop fiddling. This is so pretty, actually. I really love it. Sometimes painting upside down on things that normally the eye would get a little crazy painting can really do the trick. It can really change the perspective on it and make it look really unique. Now, I kind of just, when I'm tapping this brush, as big as it is, it's got paint on the end, and I notice that it's kind of creating these like upward little strokes that kind of look like little trees with branches. So I'm gonna go in the upper portion of the trees and just kind of go with it. I'm not gonna put any more on my brush because it's almost like a dry brush effect, and I really like what it's doing. And this is like happy accidents, right? Where you end up with a cool effect that I would have not seen ever. Do a little bit here. I really love this. Bring some more color right there. Let's rub it because it's a snow scene, so we can have snow going in a lot of different directions. It doesn't have to be smooth. A little dry brushing. And let's just put it in the foreground too, just for fun. A little water will blend it out. If you have any harsh edges that you're really not crazy about, you can just add some water and blend that out. Look at that. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, see, this is no stress. A couple of techniques that will keep you honest. Make sure you don't get ahead of yourself, and that you can stay intuitive instead of overthinking a painting. And at this point, I'm just gonna go. I like it. We're gonna leave it. That's pretty cool. I like. Okay, take a closer look. Got my watercolors down here. And this is what we end up with. It looks really pretty. Yay. All right, hope you enjoyed it. And don't forget to give me a thumbs up and a like on my class on this platform. Hope you guys are having a great day, and take care.